Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is a cold morning, but at least we see the sun, so that's a good thing. I'm Roger Collier. I'm Dean of the NSU College of Business and Technology, and it's my pleasure to introduce NSU President Steve Turner.
Good morning, everyone, and what a beautiful day. The sun that has been so elusive and temperatures that have been torturous, I think are going to return, and maybe at least for a few days, we're going to have a much better weather situation. But it's also great to be here today to be part of this lectureship, this series that's gone now for 12 years. I want to welcome all the students, the faculty and staff, and special guests today to this event. I think as I think about today, and I think that it's not only is it a lectureship, it's a celebration of friendship. You have two health professionals, Harold Battenfield, and certainly we look at the John Carletti, the friendship that was developed that in fact went from that to an action step of contributing so that others could benefit. So today I want to recognize that friendship that endures, a friendship that started and continued with their professional careers and certainly continued until the passing of Dr. Carletti just about a year or so ago. So we're so glad that Mrs. Carletti is here with us today. I'd like to thank Harold, certainly too, for his continued support of this effort, both of you for being so faithful to be here, and in fact the support that you provide to the institution. On March 6th, Dr. Carletti will be recognized posthumously as a centurion, the highest honor that we can place on those that have had a significant impact to the institution. So I know that some of you may want, some of you already have it on your calendar to participate, but that's at 11:30 on March the 6th, which is Founders Day. That's the day that in 1909 that we became a public institution of higher education. So we recognize friendship, we recognize contribution, we recognize a challenge today that will come that will spur us on to do great things. This, as I said, is the 12th year of the Entrepreneur Lectureship at NSU, and we have some of the students from the early years have returned to speak at this event and to encourage us. I look forward to Dr. Bergman's presentation today, and it is certainly enriched by your attendance. And again, to the Battenfields, Janice, we're so glad that you're here, and thank you for what you do to make NSU a better place. With that, Dean Collier.
Before I introduce our speaker, a couple of things I want to make sure everyone got on your way in. One is a purple sign-up sheet. If students, you're getting extra credit for being here this morning, be sure and fill this out. There will be someone outside to take it from you after the lecture is over. Also, you will have gotten a bookmark. Right, if you look on the back of the bookmark, on the lower, right-hand corner is a number. That will be your number for 2 drawings at the end of the lecture. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Tom Bergman, early adopter of e-commerce and the author of 2 guides to the internet, The Essential Guide to Web Strategy for Entrepreneurs and The Business Student Writer's Manual and Guide to the Internet. He's a certified public accountant with an MBA and a bachelor's in engineering physics from NSU. He received his PhD in educational technology from OU. He and his wife, Kathy, who is also an NSU graduate, started the Earplug store based in Fort Gibson. They have a website that offers an online ordering platform for hearing protection for any activity, including sleeping and studying, and even ear protection for dogs and horses. And Dr. Bergman and I just happened to be on the faculty of another institution whose name shall remain nameless, but whose initials are UCO, several years ago. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tom Bergman.
Good morning. I want to thank the Battenfields and Mrs. Carletti. Thank you very much for making this possible. President Turner, Dean Collier, Peggy Glenn, and her staff, thank you all for inviting me and for all the support. I especially want to thank my lovely wife, Kathy, for standing beside me through all the 35 years we've been married. Without her support, I certainly wouldn't be here. Now, about that entrepreneurship thing, my name is Tom Bergman, and I am an entrepreneur, which is not all that much different from a declaration by a speaker acknowledging his disease at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We both know we have a problem. He needs another drink, and I need another business proposition. I have a number of business ideas always stored away against the time when I need one, which is to say often. I like to have several ideas hidden away in various stages of development because I know from experience most of them aren't going to work out. So I need them to be developed just to the point where they look feasible, possibly even fabulously, wonderfully billionaire potential, but not so developed as to present all the difficulties that are inevitably going to occur once I figure out what has to be done to make them reality. Being an entrepreneur can turn out to be a good thing for the entrepreneur, for the community, for the nation, and we hear about such success stories virtually every day. This steady drumbeat of advertising pushes many into entrepreneurship with the consequences that those persuaded and those already inclined to this particular addiction are rarely warned in advance. Nobody tells them the truth that far more often than achieving success, of which the entrepreneur dreams, the reality of the struggle can turn very ugly. Estrangement from parents, siblings, and relatives who tire quickly of being hit up for funding. Serial divorces and serial bankruptcies too often result from a long string of broken promises. Right now, I look like a successful entrepreneur to be held up as a real-life example for all wannabe entrepreneurs to emulate. And yes, I and my family are financially secure with a 14-year-old thriving small business that employs over 10 people. My biggest financial problem is all the taxes I have to pay. But I always said that's the kind of problem I look forward to having. Allow me now, if you would, to recap some of what happened along the way. From high school, I went right to the U.S. Navy. All my friends headed for college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do and figured the Navy would give me time to figure it out. I did figure out one thing from the Navy. I figured out I didn't want a career in the Navy. The first business idea I had kept me up all night. I was going to get out of the Navy, go to work in Tulsa. I lived in Pryor at the time, and I was going to buy a bus and get some people to subscribe who also worked in Tulsa, and I would pick them up on my way to work. They would pay me for the trip, and then I would drop them off at their workplaces, pick them up on the way back home, and I was going to make a lot of money. And working out the details of that just got me so buzzed I couldn't sleep. The first business idea energized me like nothing else ever had. I really had a mission. I had direction. I was going to have my own business, and it was going to make me rich. It didn't quite work out that way. During the 2 decades of my 20s and 30s, roughly, the 70s and 80s, I followed a rather tortured path, always stumbling in the direction of my dream. I finished a 4-year tour in the Navy, took 2 tries at college, finally getting an engineering degree on the second try, worked 2 years at Ford Motor Company as an automotive engineer, decided that was boring and not getting me where I wanted to be, so I went back to school for an MBA here at NSU. I tried several failed businesses while in school, decided to become a mergers and acquisition specialist so I could just go buy me a company. And in preparation for that, sat for and passed the CPA exam, then went to work for Arthur Andersen as a financial auditor, back when there was a Arthur Andersen. A year later, I jumped to the first controllership opportunity that came my way. 6 months later, that company, Barter Systems, went out of business, leaving me looking for my next gig. Of course, I tried several more businesses that didn't work, and I worked as an auditor for a local CPA firm, then as controller for a short time for a nonprofit. As an entrepreneur, I didn't have much tolerance for the politics of the nonprofit sector, so that just didn't work out. From there, I went to another controllership of another startup, but quickly got co-opted into becoming the plant manager at an aluminum smelting plant in Chakota, Oklahoma. In total, during the 2 decades of the 70s and 80s, I tried my hand at more than 50 different jobs. I got very good at getting a job. I learned what to say, how to act, how to look right for the part, and once on the job, I generally excelled at whatever they asked me to do. The trouble was I was a lousy employee. I could never help myself. From the very beginning of even the most menial job, I was redesigning the business, figuring out how they ought to run it. I never worked for a company that impressed me as having its act together. I assumed let me find my place here. As soon as I had a job that paid for my keep, I would continue my briefly interrupted quest to have a business of my own, leaping at the first opportunity I could dream up. To hell with the job. I can always get another job if I have to. My pattern was to get a job if I could find one that paid enough to let me work on my next venture. If that wasn't possible, I went back to school, where I was able to use the GI Bill income to help support me for several years, and where I could work part-time and borrow enough to keep things going. Never did I ever doubt that I would one day have my own business. I just kept working and studying so I could get better paying jobs to provide a better shot at making a business become a reality. I enjoyed most of the things I studied, including engineering, math, business, even education. I could easily handle the classes and even found them interesting, but they did not move me. I changed major fields of study not because I liked one better than the other, not because I had a passion for a field and wanted to become a professional in that area, but because it would take me less time to get a better job so that I could get on with finding my next business venture as soon as possible. I'd gotten a minor in business while pursuing my bachelor degree in engineering, yet as a practical matter, I had no real understanding of business. I saw no connection between my efforts at putting together business deals and the principles I'd studied in college. The 4 Ps in marketing, the useful life of assets and the related depreciation schedules, internal financial controls, the principles of management, none of these seemed relevant to my quest to A, get some money, B, start a business that would make me rich. Business plans were just something you had to come up with to persuade a banker or an investor to part with his money. But what to me seemed like a simple recipe turns out to be nearly impossible without both an understanding of and an appreciation for the required knowledge and education. I effectively ignored everything I had learned in school as I plowed ahead, though. I tried a chimney cleaning business, a wood stove sales and installation business, an all-natural candy distribution business, selling custom-fitted bras, producing seminars, started an accounting service business, an auto detailing business, became a land developer, a slum landlord, an auto dealer, tried to launch an air vending business, partnered in a mortgage origination company, and attempted many others, mostly too dumb to mention. It was 1987. I had just been fired from my job managing the aluminum smelting plant in Chakota. Turned out my boss, the company president, had embezzled nearly $500,000 from the parent company, and I wrote all the checks. They weren't happy about it. I found out he had taken the money and confronted him, then forced him to fess up to his board of directors. I have to tell you, that was an interesting meeting. Since I was his highest ranking report, they took me out as soon as the debriefing and audit were over. Then, to make sure any legal response I might make was quashed, they sued me for $1 million. Seriously? $1 million? Here I was, nearly 40 years old, not enough money to make my house payment, owner of a slum property I was in the process of trying to rehab, and with 2 kids under 3. I was a CPA with my name in the front page story in the Chakotah newspaper, headline, "Chakotah Controller Sued for $1 Million." The outlook for a job in accounting, my only marketable skill anywhere in the area, looked pretty dim. Getting fired from that job was a blow unlike anything I had experienced in my life. I managed to land a couple short-term gigs helping on audits for a local accounting firm I'd worked for a few years back, but the credit card balances were climbing anyway and the bank account was empty. Then one day a miracle happened to me and my family. Her name was Juanita. She had been my mentor and advisor a decade earlier while I was in college. I called her seeking an adjunct faculty position here at NSU. By then I had an MBA degree and was a CPA, which I thought might qualify me to teach as an adjunct. Juanita encouraged and sponsored me, letting me land a once-a-week class that would pay $1,200 a semester. I gratefully accepted. Wasn't enough, but I needed everything I could get. Before I had taught even one class, Juanita called me to ask if I wanted, instead of an adjunct position, a full-time faculty position. It seems the Oklahoma legislature had decided to offer a blanket early retirement incentive to the older and therefore better paid faculty in order to reduce the cost of higher education. Lots of faculty had taken the carrot, leaving the College of Business shorthanded. Did I want the job? Duh. Despite feeling like a total imposter, I grabbed the opportunity with gratitude. Juanita saved me and my family with this job offer. I felt like a drowning man who had been pulled up onto the warm sands of the beach at higher education just in the nick of time. Teaching was the most rewarding job I had ever experienced. It allowed me to connect with students who were young and eager and just starting out to pursue their big dreams. I had a lot of life lessons to share with them along with the curriculum material they were learning. Teaching allowed me the time to really learn and come to understand the world of business. Today I can look back and see how close I came to success without knowing it at the time. If I just kept trying that one thing that failed the first time I tried it. But more often, how completely futile my efforts were destined to be in most of my little ventures. As an entry-level instructor, my salary was less than half what it had been as plant manager, and our household income was just a fraction of what it had been when both Kathy and I had been working. I dug into my job as professor, though, taking on the teaching of weekend classes, summer classes, out-of-town night classes, and intersession classes for the little extra they paid. I'm sure they do better now. I taught 18 to 21 hours a semester and still couldn't make ends meet in the middle. Kathy couldn't go to work. Early in her career, before we had children, Kathy had also worked as an auditor and later as a corporate controller, so she had endless opportunities. But our son was diagnosed at 3 as having autism, and she simply had to be there for him. So as you might expect, Kathy and I started a little side business to help supplement my meager salary. A very mundane and essentially risk-free small business, the Layout Shop, founded with a $4,300 loan that we used to buy a personal computer and printer, was a pre-press design business, a term paper typing business, a resume preparation business, an advertising, sales, and publication business, and eventually, after personal computers and laser printers in every home and office eliminated demand for most of what we did, a web design business. Kathy agreed to our starting the business despite the investment required, which for us was considerable, reasoning that she was certain she could earn enough to pay the monthly loan payments by typing student papers. Boy, did she ever. At just 90 cents a page, one especially busy month, Kathy earned over $1,650. Nobody could ever say she didn't do her part in helping our family get through the tough times. During those years of teaching, I was forced to pursue a doctorate as a condition for retaining my faculty position. So that effort, plus working extra classes whenever available to make more money, and helping Kathy take care of our two young children, kept a lid on most of my inclinations to pursue business opportunities. There was neither the time nor the money. Most importantly, I understood that I had used up my do-overs. I had a good job, and I damn sure intended to hang on to it. I realized that I was out of reset chips. I had to make this work. In life, we get a lot of slack. As a kid who does something disappointing, people say he's just a kid. He'll probably do all right. You try and fail in your 20s, it's still okay. They say, people take time to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. But by the time you hit 30, people start holding your lack of long-term jobs against you, preferring those who took a more sedate path over those of us who have challenged the norms and held 50 different jobs. You can hit the reset button another time or two by returning to college, getting a different or a more advanced degree. Coming out newly minted, you can still get an opportunity to prove your merit, but there comes a time somewhere north of 40 when you just run out of reset chips. If you get lucky, as I did with the totally unlikely offer of a full-time college teaching position just in the nick of time, baby, then you hang on for all you're worth, because you ain't going to get another miracle. I was incredibly lucky, and I knew it. As a professor of management, my specialty during the 15 years I taught was small business management and entrepreneurship. Though I always knew I had a calling to be an entrepreneur, I suffered greatly from an imposter syndrome. If you're so smart, Dr. Bergman, how come you've never succeeded in business ownership? Why aren't you rich? No student ever had the poor manners to ask the question, but I saw it in their skeptical eyes every class I taught, and it ate away at my soul. Along the way, in 1996, I was invited by a couple of my colleagues to co-write a book called The Business Student Writer's Manual. I added, because it was time, and guide to the internet. And it produced a few $1,000s in royalties. You can probably pick up a copy today for 50 cents or less at Amazon, if it's even available. But in it, if you happen to get a copy, it has what I still believe is a perfectly workable business plan for a lawn care service. Never tried it, but I am still confident it will make someone rich if it hasn't already. I followed that book in the year 2001, co-authoring The Essential Guide to Web Strategy for Entrepreneurs, which sold dozens of copies. The book never sold enough to earn even the small advance I received for writing it, but what I learned while researching and writing it changed my life. The Essential Guide focused entirely on business uses of the internet, and I used a little back burner business called Applied Personal Safety Products, or APSP, as a laboratory to explore and test the different internet-based business strategies I was learning and writing about. One of our first web development clients at the layout shop was a small family-owned industrial safety business, West Safety. David Rankin, son-in-law of the owner and Tulsa branch manager, heard about us through some work we had done for the local chamber and called for a meeting. We met with him and the owners and agreed to create their website and to host it as well, which we did for about 4 years. Their needs eventually outgrew our capabilities, and they left to go with a much more capable hosting provider. On the way out, I asked David if he would have any issue with my launching a store on the internet to sell earplugs. By this time, our kids were older and Kathy had gotten back into the workforce, and I had completed my doctorate, so we had a little extra money and I had a little extra time, which of course I used to work on business deals. I understood, though, that there would be no loans or mortgaging the house to do a deal. So I contented myself as best I could by tinkering with little ventures and ideas that didn't cost too much to try. During the time we hosted David's business web pages, and at his request, we processed all the inquiries from his site visitors, forwarding them to the correct people in his company. I noticed that the only thing he sold via his website was a box or two of earplugs once every week or two. I always thought if he'd sell them by the pair rather than by the box of 200 pairs, he should be able to sell a lot more of them. I mean, how many earplugs do you need? David had no problem with my starting an earplug store, reminding me again that the few orders generated by his website were actually a low-value nuisance to his company. His only question was, where are you going to buy your earplugs? Well, from you, of course. A couple days later, I stopped into his store, bought one box each of 5 different kinds of earplugs, took them home, put them in my office closet. That was sometime during the summer of 2000. Within a few months, I had worked up a website for APSP, created some small quantity packaging, purchased a personal computer-based credit card processing system, and opened for business. Total inventory, $75 and change. Every day I looked eagerly at my email for any orders from the store. Nothing. Day after day, week after week, nothing. Then one day I had an order, $13.65. I was so excited. But that was the only order I had in the year 2000. I had no idea how to get potential customers to find my e-commerce store. And that today remains the critical challenge for each and every web-based business, how to get found. No online business of any kind can work until you overcome that critical challenge. With such paltry sales, APSP was very much on back burner for the next several months and well into 2001 until I began researching and writing the Essential Guide. I decided to use APSP as a laboratory to test the business strategies I was writing about. By trying different tools and tactics, I started making a few sales. And sometime during 2001, I discovered a service called GoTo.com. This company let us bid for placement in the search engine results pages, called SERPs for short. The more we bid our per click received, the higher we got our ads to be shown in the SERPs. Of course, higher up on the page is better if you want searchers to click on your listing. More about that in a little while. By experimenting with this new capability, I got sales up to over $1,300 for the year 2001. Woo-hoo. Late in 2001, I learned that a new upstart company called Google was offering pay-per-click advertising services as well. I signed up and sales immediately began to expand. We did over $362 in sales in January alone. Throughout the spring of 2002, I experimented with Google pay-per-click and GoTo.com. By May, I decided to commit to a Yahoo Store shopping cart, which would cost me $29.95 a month plus 0.5% of all my sales. I'd also decided to focus just on earplugs, so I renamed the relaunched Yahoo Store Earplug Superstore. That name felt a little bit more than audacious since I was still just offering a handful of different kinds of earplugs from a very lame little online store. All my inventory was in the hall closet. But hey, fake it till you make it seemed like a good idea to me. In June, our first month on the Yahoo platform, sales were more than for the entire previous year. Looking for new products to add over the summer, I found high-end earphones which were then just coming to market to meet the demand for quality listening to go with the novel new iPods, which were selling by the millions. Our sales took off. By September, we were hitting nearly $40,000 a month. And by December, double that. We did more than $150,000 in sales in that year of 2002. In 2003, we exceeded $1.5 million, and over the next 2 years approached $3 million a year in sales. Growth like that's rare, and even rarer was the fact that it was all profitable and we had no debt. Our company very much became ours rather than just mine when I had to beg Kathy to come on board early in 2003. With some trepidation, she gave notice at her job and joined me full time. That spring, I had just become eligible for early retirement, but I took a leave of absence for a year first, just in case the business didn't work out. But I left my teaching job as a full professor of management for the last time in May of 2003. My good friend Buzz just shook his head saying, you know, Bergman, some people would consider your position as a tenured full professor at a university to be a success, and you're going to give it up to go off and run your little business? I suppose most people would feel like Buzz did unless they happen to have my personal addiction to entrepreneurship. To me, having spent 15 years teaching was just a place along the way to where I needed to get to. It was a comfortable place for sure, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the classroom. But I had something to prove, and I was running out of time to prove it. So where are we today? Today, Earplug Superstore is a thriving family-owned small business operated by Kathy, my lovely wife, who's president, corporate controller, and the mean one. Me, the director of marketing and vice president, and the easy one. Our sister-in-law, Linda, who's our general manager, daughter, Sarah, who's our web developer and marketing assistant. We also have a full-time accountant, Alicia. Miranda, our customer service manager, supervises a team of 3 customer service professionals, Veronica, Amber, and Katie. We also have 3 shipping department members, Lee, Winona, and Judy, and a part-time maintenance man, Donnie. We ship the widest range of earplugs and hearing enhancement products found anywhere in the world to all parts of the world, to individuals, small companies, schools, big businesses, churches, military establishments, oil rigs, shooting ranges, and more. We just recently shipped our 500,000th order. We truly are the Earplug Superstore, and we have one more act before we move into full retirement. Our annual sales now exceed $3 million a year, with a healthy part of that realized as profits. We're about to launch a new e-commerce store that could easily triple that number within a year. Just remember, you're hearing that from an entrepreneurial addict. What else would you expect me to say? I've learned a ton over the years. As Thomas Edison once quipped, I know millions of things that won't work. I'm reluctant, though, to hold myself out as some sort of sage, especially given all of my failures. But I do firmly believe that I know a couple of important pieces of advice I want to share with you. If you'll want to avoid the pain and the pitfalls of the entrepreneurial life, get a job. No, really, get a job. Your life will almost certainly be happier. You'll see more of the world. You'll have vacations. Know your children and your grandchildren. Grow old with your spouse. Not so much if you choose the entrepreneurial way. If you can resist the siren song, don't let the advertising of entrepreneurship as the golden path woo you into the Shark Tank. Sharks bite, then they laugh at your pain. Really, get a job. But if you insist on pursuing the entrepreneurial way, and if you're like me, it wouldn't matter what I told you, you'd do it anyway, then get an education and pay attention to the lessons that are being taught. School is the least expensive and least painful way to learn. Life will insist on teaching you what you do not learn in school, but it'll cost you more and it'll be a lot more painful. The other benefit of an education is that between entrepreneurial efforts, the jobs you'll have access to will be a lot better if you're educated, even better if you have some sort of a specialty, a certification. My CPA certificate was a godsend. Don't confuse inventing with entrepreneurship. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Henry Ford were inventors who also happened to be entrepreneurs. But your barber, the corner gas station owner, the family that runs the local Mexican restaurant, these folks are entrepreneurs too, and none of them have had to invent anything. Today, most people who dream of entrepreneurial success look for ideas like Facebook or the topsy-tail automatic ponytail maker. I've spent my entrepreneurial life looking for the invention that would make me rich. I even have a patent for a computer mouse cleaner. Don't ask. When I finally found my success, it came indirectly from our mundane little side business, the layout shop. and a small enhancement made to a very mundane kind of business, a merchant middleman. As merchant middlemen, we buy in bulk and sell in individual units, just like the Olsons did who ran the general store on Little House on the Prairie. The only important thing that's novel about our business is that we use the internet to facilitate our customer connections. If you want to make your success almost certain, choose an existing successful business to emulate and get yourself prepared with the knowledge you need to run that kind of business. Ideally, go to work for that kind of business in all the different jobs in that business. Be a busboy, be a cook, be a front of house waiter, be a back of house kitchen manager, etc., until you know everything there is to know about running it. Then you can go launch one and you can be sure you're going to succeed. You don't have to be an inventor. Be smarter than I was. Emulate the success of others, and then after you're successful in your own little mundane business, innovate to become even more successful. Finally, persist if you want it. Your chances of success without drive to continue in the face of failure are dim at best. No baseball player who ever lived hit a home run his first time at bat. Despite the implications that entrepreneurs usually hit a home run on their first try, that feat is almost unheard of. Do not let failure defeat you. Learn from each failure and get back in the game. If I'd learned the obvious lesson from the lumps I took from all my failed efforts at business, I would have quit trying. Settled down, made the best of a workaday life. I had more opportunities to do that than most people ever see. I could have been had a career as an engineer, a CPA, or a college professor and lived a good, prosperous life. I just couldn't do it. I was obsessed with having my own business, and I suppose I would have died trying had I never succeeded in my efforts. I did not know at the time, but Calvin Coolidge was right when he said nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not, genius will not, education will not, persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. I could just say the secret of our success is hard work and diligence. Would that be satisfactory? When I was teaching entrepreneurship, I always thought that what people went to entrepreneurial classes for was to learn how to do things. What exactly should I do? Not what are the principles, how many people do it. So I always tried to give people some action items, and I'd like to do that today. So, retail businesses today spend somewhere in the range of 8 to 12% of revenue on advertising and promotion. Last year, we spent 0.73%, less than 1% on advertising, and produced well over $3 million in sales. That means, all other things being equal, we brought an extra 7 to 11% of sales to the bottom line. That makes us nearly twice as profitable as most retail businesses. As an e-commerce merchant middleman, another tremendous benefit that you get is that the business is completely scalable from a single product to millions of products, and from a single order a year to thousands of orders a day. Plus, the cost to launch such a business are almost zero, other than your investment of time, which will be considerable. So here's a recipe. First, choose a product or a line of products that you want to sell. Next, find a vendor who'll sell you the products at wholesale prices. Now get set up as a customer and determine your price. Don't buy anything yet. You just need to know that you can and know what it's going to cost you when you do. Now rent a shopping cart, or an e-commerce site as it's sometimes called. There are many to choose from. They cost as little as $29.95 a month. Don't waste a lot of time choosing. Just do your research and choose one. You can always move to another one as your business grows if need be, but nearly any of them will be fine at the start. Now build your pages using SEO. search engine optimization, which I'll talk about in a minute. You must do this yourself. Don't pay a designer or a developer or get help from your brother-in-law. You've got to do this yourself. This is critical. You may find it hard, you may find it easy, but you must do it so that you have complete control over the content of your pages. We have over 1,300 items in our store, and I would guess at this point more than 80% of all the text written in there was done by me. My daughter has come on board in the last few years and has done a lot of work as well, but between the two of us, all the words in the store are ours. And that's absolutely critical. If you can't write well, find somebody to edit your work and get busy learning how to write competently so that you don't need the editorial help anymore. Launch your store, then go to work driving traffic using pay-per-click. I'll explain a little more about that in a minute too. When you get an order for the products you're offering, then go buy what you need to fill the order. Just buy a few. Don't buy a truckload. Enough just to fill your order and maybe a couple extra. That way you don't tie your money up in inventory that just sits there waiting on sales that never come. If your first offerings never sell, you never buy any. Cool. You can try something else. If you sell some, but they're not enough to qualify for acceptable pricing from your vendor, you can always refund the customer's money with apologies. This will always be an important decision point. Do I go forward promoting this product or drop it due to low demand? If you have trouble deciding, drop it. Life's too short to waste struggling to make a bad product sell. As you start to receive orders for your first few items, you'll need to figure out how to process the orders. Processing involves charging the credit card or capturing their payment with PayPal, putting the products into a box, applying their shipping address, and taking it to the post office or the UPS store. As you begin to realize sales of the products you're offering, add more items to increase sales and continue to spend the bulk of your time working on driving traffic to your store. Repeat till you get where you want to be. Running a business is all about solving problems. Most of the problems newbies focus on are the mundane problems of operations. How to charge the orders, where to get boxes, how to handle shipping, and so on. These problems are relatively simple to solve, and you can readily find help. For any operational problem you may face, I highly recommend two sources: Google and the small business development centers run by the Small Business Administration. Both are free and both will offer you a wealth of specific information and guidance to enable you to solve virtually any problem that comes your way, except for one: getting found. So how to get customers to your e-commerce store? There are two methods that we've used throughout our history. They're the two methods we still use today that actually work. We tried all kinds of other stuff, social, email, all kinds of things. None of them do anything. Search engine optimization and pay-per-click. Now, search engine optimization is the process of carefully considering every word you write in your store, choosing the words you use, the order in which you use them, and the placement of the words in your store pages so that the search engines, mainly Google, will find your pages and present them on page 1 of the SERPs. By the way, you don't need to submit your site to the search engines anymore. They'll find you. So don't fall for the sales pitches promising to submit your site to 1 million search engines. And you can't do much to fool the search engines as was once possible, so don't fall for the sales pitches from the SEO guys who promise to get your site in the top 10 listings on the SERPs for a fee. You just need to focus on what your customers need. Pay-per-click, as you might imagine, achieving high-ranking pages in the SERPs using SEO alone might never happen, no matter how good you are at creating such pages. The reason is that Google also considers how long you've been in business. how much traffic you have coming to your business, and how many other reputable sites link to yours. You can wait a very long time before these other factors grow organically to the level you need. In the meantime, you can use pay-per-click to pay for traffic to come to your website. But how does search engine optimization work? I've got a few recommendations for you. First, the product descriptions. Every word in your store absolutely has to be created from scratch. And the reason it has to be unique is because of an issue called duplicate content. Google will only credit one source with original content. If yours is a copy of that content, they will not show you in their results pages. And it turns out that the kinds of descriptions you need to write are the kinds of descriptions that your visitors need to persuade them that you're the right place to buy the product. Not a bunch of hypey stuff, but really good, solid descriptions that tell people what it is that they're buying from you and why. The descriptions need to be good enough that they persuade people to make the decision right there while they're sitting on your page looking at what you have to offer. It takes a lot of time to create compelling product descriptions, and it takes a while to learn how to create search engine friendly page structures, but all that information is readily available for free out there in Google land. Avail yourself of it. Once again, you must do this yourself. You can't hire somebody else to do it, because until you know how to do it, you don't know how to supervise and train them. You must master the principles before you hire somebody else. Now, pay-per-click is the technique you use. I guess I'm running out of time. People are leaving. They're going to give up. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Without going into the details of this, I'm going to go to the end of this and give you my contact email. And I will make this available to you, those of you who want to take the deep dive and learn this. Copy down my email address and just send me a request. I'll send you the slides and my notes about it, and I'll be happy to engage any questions that you might have, as well as I will right now. I really appreciate your having me today. Thank you for your kind attention.